Hi everyone, Rainey Bastarash with Elite Thought TV. And tonight we're going to have an interesting chat. We're going to be speaking, one of the topics we'll be speaking on is about commitment. But before we start, I was preparing this talk for about commitment as well as a couple other topics, I read this joke earlier today, or this story, I guess you could say, a humorous story that I wanted to go over with you. It was about this place where where they were building airplanes, and they invited, I believe it was about a dozen university professors to come down to the airport, and they had them all get on one of the planes. And once all the university professors were on the planes, they announced to the professors that the plane that they were on, or the jet that they were on, was built by their students. And very shortly they were going to be taking off for a flight with the plane. Immediately, just about all the professors except for one got up and ran off the plane frantically, okay? And they went up to the last professor and he says, "Why didn't you run off the plane?" And he looked at him, he says, "I'm not too worried about it. If one of my students built the plane, it won't even start." Okay, so confidence. He had no confidence in the students. As hypnotherapists, it's very important that we have confidence in ourselves and in the people that we're dealing with. By having confidence in them, by having confidence in yourself, they can feel the same way. Because if a student, if one of your clients doesn't have confidence in you, chances are the session will not be successful. So what I'd like to speak to you about tonight is actually what I call the triangle of success. What I mean by the triangle of success, three things. If you look at a triangle, okay, there's 3 points that are very important for you to have in order to have a successful session. If one of these 3 points is missing, chances are your session will not be successful. Things will probably go by the wayside. So the first one, if you look at the top of the triangle, the first one on the top is desire. Okay, you can write that down if you like. Desire. So let's face it, if somebody has come to see you to quit smoking, they have to want to quit smoking. There needs to be a desire. Without a desire, again, there's nothing. We're going to get back to that one in a minute. So looking down the bottom left side, we have a belief. That's the second point of the triangle. Belief. If you don't believe in the person doing the session, if you don't believe that you can quit smoking or do whatever it is you need to do, it's not going to happen. There needs to be a belief. So we got desire, we have belief, and on the other side, the other end of the triangle, is commitment. What kind of commitment has your client put forth to succeed, to quit smoking, to be healed, to pass a test, whatever it is they came to see you for, okay? Now, with paying sessions, of course, the payment is the commitment. This is why I tell my graduates when they ask me how much should I charge, I tell them, call around, find out what the going rate is, and charge $20 more. Okay? Why? Well, we're not trying to be competitive, but be the best in your area. And usually the one that charges the most is considered in the client's mind as the best. So when they come see you to quit smoking, let's say you're charging them $150, $200 to quit smoking, when they walk out of your office, because of that commitment of spending $200 on a session, if they think about having a cigarette and they reach down and they go to light it up, they're going to say, "Ooh, that's a $200, cigarette." They're going to think about it a little while before they go on. Okay, so there needs to be the commitment. Now, a lot of times I have clients or students in school telling me, "Well, I don't know if I really want to charge people. I'm doing volunteer work. I'm at a center with poor people and this and that." Let me tell you something right now that I've learned a long time ago. If you do something for nothing, it's worth nothing. Do not do a free session. Do not do a session for nothing unless you just want to have an hour of having wasted your time. Now, I know there might be a couple exceptions, but that's the way it's worked in most situations. Now, doesn't mean you have to charge them, but you need to do something for a commitment. So what can you do if you don't want to charge them? How about barter? Is there something that they can do for you that will give them a commitment? Maybe cook you dinner. If they're farmers, maybe they can bring you a bushel of corn, a chicken. A cow would be kind of a big payment, okay? But what can they do for the commitment? Sometimes, for people that, let's say, don't have a way to travel to your office, just getting there is commitment enough. You've probably heard the stories of the elderly woman that traveled to a foreign country so she can go see the statue of some saint that might be crying, and she knows if she can just go touch that tear, she'll be healed instantly. Her belief is so strong that when she does that, her commitment to maybe spend everything she owns to get there, that's the commitment, and the hardship she had to go through, that when she finally touches that tear, she's instantly healed. Because she had those, actually all three parts of the triangle. She had the desire, the belief, and the commitment. So it doesn't have to be cash out of pocket. It can be bartering, it can be trading services. If they have something like maybe they have an online business where they can maybe advertise you, or there's a lot of different things that you can do. It doesn't have to be cash. So let's go back, go into all 3 points again. Number 1 is the desire. So let's use a teenager coming into your office with his mother to quit smoking. The mother says, I want him to quit smoking. What's wrong with the triangle there? Okay. What's wrong with the triangle is, number 1, the kid does not want to quit smoking. His mother wants him to. So the desire is not there. At least it doesn't appear to be there. Now, the mother writes you a check and she says, here's the money, I'll be in the other room. Okay, so there's no commitment on his side. So you're out the desire or out the commitment, it looks like. Now, does the kid believe that you can, have him quit smoking? Does he believe that he can quit smoking? That's still up in the air. Little trick you could do, if the mother's written the check, I tell her, or if she hasn't written the check, I tell her to give me a check, but don't sign it yet, okay? Or she could sign it, but don't, fill it out who it's going to. She gives me the check, goes in the other room. As soon as she goes in the other room, you take that check and you give it to the teenager. Say, this check is yours. Now, if you do this and it backfires on you, don't blame me, okay? But it's worked well so far, knock on wood. This check is yours. If you really want to quit smoking, give it back to me, and then we'll go ahead and do the session. If you don't want to quit smoking, you can keep the check, that's fine. Now, so far in 10 out of 10 cases, they've given me the check back. Now, what would happen if they didn't give you the check back? Well, you're only out maybe a minute of your session. You call the mother back in and you say, hey, he didn't really want to quit smoking, and by the way, he has your check, okay? Sometimes teenagers don't think too far beyond that. They're not going to be able to keep their own mother's check. And of course, if she hasn't filled out the top, she can go ahead and use it for something else. But again, with that, you're getting the desire, because by them giving you the check mentally, they've made the determination, or they desire to get this done. You might see a lot of situations like that. A husband comes in with a wife and he says, I want her to do this and to do that. Who really wants it done, her or him? I see it a lot with people bringing their elderly parents in. One case we had, a woman brought her elderly mom. Her mom was probably 85 or so, and she lost a $7,000 check. And she was all upset. Actually, the daughter was more upset than the mother, because from what I understand later, the check was for the daughter. So she was determined. But she was pushing the mother so much that the mother was so nervous. She was so stressed out. When you're stressed, your short-term memory pretty much goes away. You can't remember anything. So pretty much all we had to do was relax a bit, get the daughter out of the building. I had to go shopping. And it took about maybe 20 minutes or so, but we did find the $7,000 check. Or we found where it was, where it went to. Unfortunately, it was stolen by someone, but we figured out who it was. That's getting into forensic hypnosis. But you see the idea, it wasn't really her that wanted it. It was more the daughter. But once we were able to get rid of her and I was able to talk to the woman and calm her down, we were able to get to the bottom of it. So you need to have the desire, you need to have the belief, and you need to have the commitment. Now, the belief. If you believe in anything, you can pretty much do it. But if you don't believe you can do something, it's just not going to happen. If you don't believe you can run a marathon because you can't get to the mailbox and back, chances are you're not going to be able to run a marathon. We call it the buying in principle, okay? You have to take it piece by piece by piece. That's why if somebody wants to run a marathon and they can't make it to the mailbox, well, once they can make it to the mailbox and we hypnotize them a little further, sometimes you need to hypnotize people in little bits until they can finally attain their goal. Okay, so just because the goal is out of reach doesn't mean you can't work on it. Work pieces. You know, the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, because you're going to choke otherwise. So that is the triangle of success, and I wanted to make sure you understood that before I get into probably one of the most important parts of hypnosis, which is the pre-session. Now, most people say, well, the session's the most important part. You know, the session, pretty much by then, the person has, your client has pretty much determined whether they believe in you or not, whether they believe it can happen. So by the time they come to the session, it's pretty much done, okay? If you did a really good session and the client believes it's going to happen, they believe you can do it, they're determined, pretty much whatever you say will work on them, okay, because of their belief system. I actually had a friend years ago that had somebody come to her to have a voodoo curse released from them. Now, first of all, you need to believe that you can have a voodoo curse put on you in order for it to work. And he believed that this hypnotherapist can take the voodoo curse off of him. So his belief is what did it. Now, all she really had to do was what I call the ooga booga release and say something silly like that, because they believed, so whatever she would have done would have released the curse, which she was able to do it in a session. It's that belief system. So the whole idea of the pre-session is to obviously calm somebody down when they first come into your office, because the majority of people that come to your office are afraid of you because of the misconceptions of hypnosis. They think you're going to walk into the office and you're going to say, go ahead, sit down, close your eyes, ooh, deep, and this kind of thing, okay? So you need to calm them down. So the whole idea of the session is to calm them down, to win them over, to eliminate misconceptions, and to build that belief system. We call it building expectancy. Every step, there's actually about 8 steps for an entire, from the beginning pre-session to the end of the session. Every step until the session, you're building what I call building the sale. You're building the expectation. The sum of the yeses gets the sale. Look at it that way. So if somebody keeps on asking you questions where you keep on saying yes, 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 when it comes time for the sale, you're going to sign. Hypnosis is the same way. If you can keep them believing, you're building their suggestibility to the point where it's just a matter of going through with the session. So what we're going to do is I want to actually walk you through briefly the 8 steps of a session, so mostly the pre-session, so you can see how we teach it in case you're not doing it the same way. And if you are doing it, if you did train through us, it might be a good refresher for you. Okay, we're going to talk about the different steps. The first one I call the meet and greet. Okay, the person came and knocked on the door, and you open the door, and that's when you're saying, hey, how you doing? That's the front line of contact. Now, before I go further than this, remember, before this point, you have already called them on, or they have called you on the phone, and you set up the session. I know there's been confusion about this in the past, especially from some of the home study course people. The pre-session is not done on the phone, okay? That's done in the office. On the phone, all you're doing is taking the order, finding out, you're giving them a brief information, but that whole phone call on the phone shouldn't be very long. You're not doing the session over the phone. I think some people have a tendency of doing way too much on the telephone, and you can scare the client off. So on the phone, you're finding out, if they've been hypnotized before, what's worked, how many times they've tried, what is it they need, telling them the price, how many sessions it's going to be, and that's pretty much it. And when they come over, that's when you're getting into all the misconceptions. So don't mix up your pre-phone call with the pre-session. There's 2 different things. So to meet and greet, I'm a creature of habit. I like to say, hi, my name's Rainey. You come on in. You have the good seat. I'll have the cheap seat. Okay, I usually say the same thing. The good seat is a recliner. The cheap seat is usually a chair like this that I'm sitting in for doing my session. So they sit down, and as soon as they sit down, I pick up my clipboard with my paperwork, and as they're sitting down, I go, before we get started, I'm going to ask you about 1 million questions. Is that okay? They kind of chuckle, but it sets them at ease. By saying I'm going to ask you 1 million questions, it's like, oh, he's not going to hypnotize me right away. I got a few seconds, to relax. They get a chance to see whether they like me, whether they're comfortable with the place. So again, it puts the session off a little bit. It helps them to calm down. Now, that is the meet and greet. Now we're getting into what I call common ground. You want to get them comfortable with you. What's everybody's favorite subject? Themselves. People love to talk about themselves, so get them talking about themselves. How do you do that? I use the intake sheet. On the top of the clipboard, right on the first thing you're going to see is my intake sheet. And on the intake sheet, I do the top part of it, which has the name, address, phone number, where do you work, have you been hypnotized before, and what for, that kind of stuff. As you're filling it out, I fill it out myself. Again, everyone does things differently. I'm just showing you the way that we do it, okay? So if you can use some of this in your practice, fine. If not, do whatever you're doing, but it just gives you more ideas. So as you're filling it out, name, address, they give you their address and talk about it. Oh, is that by so-and-so? How long have you lived there? Do you like it? See, you're finding something innocent to talk about that's getting them comfortable with you. Where do you work? What do you do? How long have you done that? Do you like it? Again, you're getting them talking. Now be careful. This is a double-edged sword, okay? By getting them talking about themselves, they enjoy talking about themselves. They might just take off and talk for hours. I mean, if you had the elderly lady that's reaching in her pocketbook, taking out the pictures of the family to show you her grandchildren and last Thanksgiving's pictures, you're stuck. You went a little too far, okay? Soon as you see the wallet start to come out, okay, let's move on, all right? So you want to keep it rolling because your whole session should be, an hour, maybe a little over an hour from beginning to end. If she pulls out the pictures, you might be there for 2 hours. You're probably going to go over her house after the session for cookies and milk or something, okay? So you don't want that. So ask them about themselves, finish doing the top of the intake sheet. Now they're a little more comfortable with you, okay? Don't fall into the trap of telling them all about yourself. A lot of new hypnotherapists feel if I tell her how professional I am, and somebody says, what's wrong with milk and cookies? No, the cookies are good, but, that's afterwards. You're not getting paid for that, okay? But you lost my train of thought here. Okay, sometimes people type funny things in here. Okay, so... let's see. So we did the intake sheet. We got you comfortable. Even Raluca's laughing at me. Okay, Raluca, I see you laughing over there. And pattern interrupt, yes. Okay, I'm going to stop looking at what people are typing and just looking at the rest of the screen. So where were we? Okay, so common ground. You got the common ground. Now you want to move on. Don't get too much with them because you're going to be stuck forever. Now they're comfortable, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell them exactly how the session's going to go. And what I do is I go through, I usually have a cheat sheet. You can see I got my little cheat sheet here, which is the list of all the different things I do in the session. And I take the cheat sheet and I tell them, okay, here's how the session's going to go. I'm going to explain to you what hypnosis is, how it works. We're going to do some suggestibility exercises to find out how your mind works, because everyone's hypnotized a little differently. This way I could tailor the session to you, which leads me into that. And then we're going to do the session. How's that sound? They usually go, oh, that's great, because, again, it's pushing the session a little bit further on. And that's exactly what you do. So what is hypnosis? Probably the best way to explain what hypnosis is by going over probably 5 of the top misconceptions that are pertinent to your area. Different areas have different, misconceptions that might pertain to them. And before I even get into that, I talking to them a little bit about how basically it's being open to suggestion. If I were to take a lemon and cut a lemon in half, and you can imagine me opening it up and squeezing it, and you're seeing the juice dripping down on the table and your mouth started to water, okay? That's hypnosis. That's being open to suggestion. If I started acting like I'm really cold and like this and looking at the window cold and you start looking and you start shivering, that's hypnosis. It's just being open to suggestion. People think it's so much more than that. So what are the biggest misconceptions in your area? Well, some people that are maybe in the Bible Belt area say, well, is it against my religion? No, the Catholic Church accepted hypnosis in 1958 as a practice. Whatever it might be, is it dangerous? Are there any pills being used? Will I do anything against my will? That's probably the #1 misconception. So make sure you answer that one first. You won't do anything against your will or your nature. If I asked you to rob a bank, you wouldn't rob it unless you wanted to, and if you did, you wouldn't give me the money, okay? But if you got caught, you'd blame me. I like to use humor, diffuses it, they laugh a little bit, and we move on. Will I tell you any deep, dark secrets? And I usually say, not unless you want to. If you have money hidden in the backyard, it's safe. So where is it? So, you have a little fun with them. I mean, it doesn't have to be a real serious thing. But let them know that there's nothing that's going to bother them. It's no more dangerous than sitting in a recliner relaxing, okay? You're not going to get stuck. There's never been a terminal case of hypnosis in the emergency room that I know of. You're going to open your eyes. Actually, one of two things would happen. Either you'd fall into natural sleep, then wake up when I call you, or you would just open your eyes, okay? You're not going to get stuck. So go over the top 5 misconceptions, whatever they might be in your area. Then, how does hypnosis work? The easiest way to explain how hypnosis works, if you have my hypnosis manual, okay, in the putting it together part of the manual, it goes through a little scenario called the British Guard. Actually, it's in the book twice. If you don't have the hypnosis manual, go to my website, choosehypnosis.com. Right on the main site, put in your email address, and you can download our 446-page hypnosis manual free. How's that? Okay, good plug. And again, you'll see everything I'm talking about is in there, but there's a lot more information in there. It's probably enough to keep you going for about an hour. Okay, so the British Guard scenario. Free is good. Here I am reading the line again here. Free is good. British Guard, I remember that. Okay. The British Guard scenario is, imagine there's a British Guard standing in the doorway. Actually, there's a plant in the doorway, but let's say that doorway was workable, okay? And there's a British Guard standing in the doorway. And he's holding his weapon. He's challenging everything that's being said to him. He's resisting everything. He's the conscious mind. My job as a hypnotist is to get past your rebellious conscious mind into the subconscious, which is the whole room on the other side of that door, which is like a 5-year-old innocent child that wants to help you. That's where all the power is. He wants to help you, but he doesn't know how. So 2 things we got to do. 1 is get past this resisting guard. And number 2 is give suggestion to this innocent child that really wants to help you. And for those people that have children, little children, they'll realize a 5-year-old child wants to do anything it can to please you. They want you to be proud of them. So you tell them to do something, they're going to do it. And that's how fast suggestions are taken. Okay? We just need to get past the conscious guard. Now, it's not as bad as most people think. You don't have to put him asleep. He's not in trance. He's not unconscious. He's just occupied or relaxed. So what we're going to do is we're going to test you in a moment or do some exercises to find out how your mind works. And as a result, we'll realize whether we need to relax him or keep your mind busy. One or the other. Okay, very simple to do. If I need to relax him, we're going to say some relaxing words. You're not going to go so deep that you can't hear me. You're just going to relax and let go. It's just enough to get rid of the fight, okay, to get rid of the resistance. And if it's keeping your mind busy, it's kind of like doing your taxes and having a conversation at the same time. You have to let go of one or the other. So we're going to give your conscious mind a job to do. And while it's doing the job, we're going to say the suggestions and they're going to go right past into the subconscious mind. Very simple, because the analytical mind, or the mind that keeps busy, is task driven. So when we give it a job, it's going to do it, and it's going to do it relentlessly, so we can go right past it with the suggestions. So either way, the suggestions go right into the subconscious mind. The suggestions are always accepted unless they're negative suggestions that you're resisting. And unless you're going la, 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 you're not resisting. So the suggestions are going to be accepted. Now, I'm saying this more for you as hypnotherapists. Whenever you give someone a suggestion, that suggestion is accepted. Hypnosis always works. Ooh, you ever heard that before? Hypnosis always works for about 3 to 5 days. Okay? In other words, once a suggestion is given, it is always accepted. But unless it's repeated, in many cases, it'll just fade away. In many cases, the majority of the time. Okay? So that's why once we do a session, that person always walks out a non-smoker for a few days, but you need to keep some kind of repetitiveness going. We give them a CD or an MP3 that they could take with them to listen on a daily basis. Then science kicks in. If they listen to it every single day for a minimum of, let's say, 30 days, they're rerouting their neural connections and they're creating a new habit of being a non-smoker rather than being a smoker. It's just the way the mind works. So you can say it's biology, it's science, proven facts. But if they don't repeat it, and approximately 83% of the public, within 3 to 5 days, they're going to be right back to where they started. So if you're not giving people a follow-up CD, MP3 session or something, start doing it if you want higher success. Okay, I explained that very briefly to them. Sometimes just at the end of the session, I'll say, here, take this and listen to it every day. It's going to help you to relax. It's going to give you a great day. and it's going to make sure this happens for you. So, the British Guard, we either relax you or keep your mind busy. We get past the British Guard into the subconscious mind, and the suggestions are taken. So let's go ahead and find out how your mind works. This is where we do the suggestibility test. It's a lead-in right into the suggestibility test. So go ahead and sit down comfortably. Take your hands, put them together like you're praying. Make a little goalpost. I want you to focus between those two fingers. And I do the finger test. And of course, as they're focusing through those two fingers, imagine your fingers coming together as if I put a rubber band around them, tighter and tighter, closer and closer, and eventually your fingers touch. Go through the whole scenario. I didn't actually do the whole thing, so don't try to follow with me, okay? That was just a very brief part of it. Until your fingers actually touch. And again, if their fingers touch, you know they're non-analytical. If they don't touch, you know they're analytical. If they go the other way, they're afraid of something. Usually I say they're afraid or they're resisting, but if they paid you $150, $200 for a session, they're not resisting. They're afraid, because who in their right mind would pay you $150 and try to resist you, unless it was a relative or a friend or something. So it's usually because they're afraid, so you might want to talk to them a little bit more to find out what they're afraid of, what they're uncomfortable with. I always do a minimum of 2 suggestibility tests. So you might want to do an arm rising and falling test. I know Raluca likes to do the pendulum test. Okay, so you do which one's comfortable with you. Once you get the 2 tests, you determine where they are and whether they're analytical or not, and you explain to them what that means. Otherwise, you're just going to think you're doing comedy hypnosis with them. Okay, non-analytical means all I need to do is relax you. Analytical, if they didn't touch, that's fine. They did pass. Okay, they didn't fail a test. They did great. It just means that their mind, they like to keep busy. And they're going to probably look at you and say, wow, how do you know that? I do like to keep busy. Because analytical people know that they're analytical. They might not know that terminology, but when you say you like to keep busy, they're going to say, yeah, that's right. They come home from a full days of work. They get home, instead of relaxing, they want to go back to work. Okay, they want to work around the house. That's just how the analytical mind works. So now you went through all the explanation. You feel comfortable. They feel comfortable with you. You tested them. You know exactly how to hypnotize them, so you can go to either the analytical or non-analytical session that you put together. Now, basically, you do what I call the prep work. Okay, what is the prep? Finishing your intake sheet, because at the beginning when you worked on your intake, you just took in their name, information, you know, where they live, they've been hypnotized before. Now you're getting into the nitty-gritty. If it's to quit smoking, how much do you smoke? When's the hardest times? You know, all the different things about it. If they're there for memory retention or test taking, find out a little bit about the test, find out what's happened in the past. Why can they not remember? Are they freaking out during the test? Are they thinking about, oh, what if I don't pass the test? Because you know, with memory retention, they need to keep themselves in the now. If they're worried about what's going to happen in the future, they shut off their connection to the alpha mind, which is where memories are. Stress shuts that off. So they need to be in the now so they can remember things. But that's another whole story. Anyway, so we found out how to hypnotize them. Now, basically, once you finish the intake sheet, as you're doing the intake sheet, getting information, listen to what they're saying. You write down little clues on there or little things that you think can help. So when you're reading your script, you can add them to the script. Okay, the script is just a track to run on. There's no one script that is perfect for everyone, okay? There's some people that, you know, maybe don't want to walk on a treadmill. There's some that want to do this. Some of them don't like this, don't like that. So as you're listening to them, you can realize what you can add into the session and what you can take away from the session. Make those notes so you can tailor the session to them as well as possible. Any instructions you want to give them, now's the time you want to give it to them. Any challenges you want to give them for the future, you know, until next week, this is the time to do it. So this is like the prep before the session. Once you finish with the intake sheet, the rest of the prep is getting them comfortable to sit in the chair. Are they comfortable? Is the room really cold? Are you going to have to put a blanket on them? Everything that you want to do to get them ready, that's when you do it. If they're wearing sunglasses, I have them take off the sunglasses. If they're wearing a hat, I have them take off the hat. I want them to be comfortable, but I want to see their eyes also, because it helps me to get a better feeling of what's going on with them. Plus, if they have sunglasses on, I want to make sure they're not peeking at me, okay? Making all these Google eyes. I want to see if their eyes are closed. Okay, now you're seeing with the truth why I don't want sunglasses. Okay. Check their hands. Make sure there's nothing in their hands. I had a woman once, when she went to go in hypnosis, she had her hands like this, and I didn't know why. You know, it looks like she wants to fight me, right? But they were more like this. And halfway through the session, her hand opened up, and there were a bunch of crystals in her hand. I wish I'd known that at the beginning, because what if she had opened up her hands, for relaxing, and all the crystals fell on the ground? That could have ruined the session. She would have jumped up, oh, my crystals. So if they're clutching something, have them put it down. If they're clinging onto their pocketbook, they might not want to give it to you. Well, have them put it between, their hip and the seat, so at least they can be comfortable. While we're talking about comfort, when they're in a chair, whatever kind of chair it is, you want them to put their hands either on their lap, on the side of the chair, and their feet stretched out, but no crossing arms and legs. Crossing their arms and legs sends a negative impulse to the brain. If you don't believe me, just think about how you act when a salesman comes in to sell you life insurance, okay? Or something that you're not comfortable with, or you don't want to hear about. First thing you do is you fold your arms, you fold your legs, and you lean back. You look like a Philadelphia pretzel. As you're comfortable, you start to unwind. When you lean forward, that's when you're ready to buy. That's when he should give you the pen. Okay, go ahead and sign here. Okay, so watch their body language. Make sure they're comfortable. Get them in the chair. Once they're in the chair, you're ready to start the session. Now, I don't come up to them and say, do you have any more questions? Because guess what? By this point of the session, all the questions should have been handled with the misconceptions and what is hypnosis and how does it work. Sometimes by saying, do you have any questions, that will open up a can of worms and they'll start asking you all kinds of questions that can lengthen the whole thing. I'm just ready to start, and I take it for granted that they don't have any. Because if they do have any big questions, they're going to stop you anyway. If you've done the session, the whole thing from the beginning to this point usually is about a half an hour at least. And in most cases, I really haven't had any other questions. At this point, you might want to ask them if they need to go to the bathroom. Don't give them a suggestion that they have to go to the bathroom, but ask them if they do. If they have to go a little bit now, when they're in hypnosis, they're going to have to go twice as much, okay? And there's nothing worse than having them get up and leaving during the middle of a session to go to the bathroom, because then you got to kind of start over again. All right, so at this point, you're ready to do the session. So by now, they're comfortable with you. They understand the process. You've gotten rid of the misconceptions. You've built expectancy, especially by doing the suggestibility test and all the different things. The belief that they believe in you. They believe it can happen. When they saw their figures go together, they're like, wow, he can do that to me. Quitting smoking is not a problem. So you're building the expectancy so much that now you're ready to do the session. You say, close your eyes. We're going to go ahead and have you quit smoking now. It's pretty much a done deal. You just got to read your scripts, read your suggestions, and boom, it's done. The end of the session, of course, all you need to do is, for the closing, is schedule next week's session. Give them a CD or MP3 if you have that. Do any kind of after sales if you have an office where you're selling different products. Give them a few minutes to see your products if you want. Talk to them about what you got coming up. But don't schmooze too long, because again, you probably have your next client waiting in the office or coming in soon. So that is pretty much the entire session from beginning to end. The time that I've seen that most people have problems with clients where there's a doubt or they don't know if it worked, it's because the pre-session was too quick, didn't cover enough. Take your time in the pre-session, and that shouldn't happen. The better pre-session you do, the better session you're going to have as a whole. So I've seen so many times, especially when we're training people, when we have them practice, they breeze right through that pre-session. They're done in about 5 minutes and they're ready to get to the session because you want your client to close his eyes so you can read to him, okay? When their eyes are open, you want to get comfortable with them. And again, you'll get more comfortable with them when you're actually working with them, because when you're in an office being trained by Raluca and I, and we're standing right over you, that's why they do it in 5 minutes. They're nervous. The instructors are watching us, So I'm sure that once you get in front of a client who doesn't know what you know about hypnosis, you're going to unwind, you're going to relax, and it's going to be a lot easier. Because, of course, even your very first client coming in, if you've taken the course, you know a lot more about hypnosis than they do, so you are the authority rather than an instructor watching you, so it'll be a lot more comfortable. And that's pretty much what I had for you tonight, from beginning to end. We spoke about the triangle of success with desire, belief, and commitment. Those 3 things are very important to have. And the 8 parts of the pre-session. Now we got a few minutes more. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask about this process, go ahead and let us know now. And I'll give you a few minutes to type, because I know there is like a minute or 2 lag between you hearing me and words coming back. But if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. If you don't have any questions, go ahead and type in no questions so I don't just shut you off halfway through, and we'll go from there. Let's see. I'm looking at all the past comments about cookies and pattern interrupt and free is good. And so it looks like there's no question here. No questions, thanks. And I guess that's about it. So we will see you next Tuesday night, same place. And for those of you that can't come back, that I don't see next week or between now and the holidays, I wish you all a very safe and happy holidays from Raluca and I both. Thank you for coming, and have a great night.